In this guide, we're going to show you how to implement and select between custom Angular material themes. And just so you have an idea, it goes something like this. If you'd like to follow along, we have provided both a written tutorial and a link to the Github repository along with cloning instructions. So you can go ahead and clone that down and run it, and then you will actually have a live working environment. Okay, so we're here in the written guide, and if you want to create the project and follow along step by step, the first thing you need to do is run this command here, ng new Angular theming examples, -- routing, -- style as CSS. And usually we just skip the test because we aren't going to be creating any for this project anyways. The other thing you need to do, as you probably know already, is you need to add an Angular material. And we're going to be using Firefly Semantics Slice for the state management needed to switch the theme. And so to install that, you just run this. When we are creating Angular themes, the first thing we need to do is create our themes file. So we're just going to go in here and go down here. And so this is the one we created. It's called the themes.scss. It's in the source directory, and we'll open it up and take a look. So the first thing we've done is define our colors. And so we have the primary color set to matte indigo, the accent color set to matte cyan, and the warm color set to matte deep orange. And the weight for the default value of matte indigo is 500, the lighter variant is 200, and the darker variant is 800. We didn't use any custom weights for matte cyan, so we're just going to get the default value that Angular provides for that. And for the matte deep orange, we're using a default weight of A200. So now that we've defined our colors, we can define our themes. And we've defined one light theme using the matte light theme function provided by Sass. And we've also defined a dark theme, and we're using the matte dark theme Sass function. So after defining our themes, we need to import those themes into styles.scss. And before we do that, we need to do some initializing of our theme capabilities. And so the first thing we need to do is import Angular material theming. And then we need to import matte core. And that needs to import it exactly once per project, so we don't get duplicate code. And then we can go ahead and import our themes file. And once that's done, we can define a matte light theme class that we'll be using for the light theme, and also a matte dark theme class that we're going to be using for the dark theme. Now, something to pay attention to. The matte dark theme needs a dark background. Otherwise, you may have certain elements that don't show up because they're being blended into a white background. So just make sure that when you define the dark theme that you have a dark background. And then the rest of it is just the default CSS that came with style.scss. And so that's it for that. In order to monitor the selection of a theme and also have a place to put the initial value of the theme string, we're going to be using a state service. And within that state service, we're going to use a Firefly Semantics object store to store the initial value and any subsequent selection of the theme. And we're doing that here on this theme property. And we're initializing the store down here. And then we're creating an observable that allows us to monitor changes to the theme down here. If you'd like to learn more about how the Firefly Semantics Slice object store works, we've provided a link to the YouTube as well as the written guide in the description below. Now we need to go ahead and implement the theme selection in our app component. And so what we have here is the theme select control, and we're initializing that using our object store. And so we have the key here, which is s.os.s.theme, and this is the key that we pass to snapshot in our object store to get the value of that key. The next thing we have is a themes array, and this is just the colors that we're using for our themes, which are light and dark. We're also using a theme map here, and what we're doing with that is we're mapping the color light to light theme and dark to dark theme. Within our components on init, we are subscribing to the theme select controls value changes observable. and that gives us the current theme color. And once we have that theme color, we can go ahead and look up the corresponding theme on our theme map. So once we have the new theme here, we go ahead and perform a put on our object store. And that will emit the new theme, which is what triggers the user interface to render a new theme. Whenever we change the theme, we need to call this method, which is remove theme classes. And this removes the current theme classes from the class list of the overlay container. And the overlay container is part of Angular CDK, and it renders overlays like the snack bar or drop downs and so on. And in addition to that, we need to call add theme class, which adds the current theme class back onto the overlay. And so you'll notice down here as well that we also call these two methods during the component's initialization to make sure that we have the right theme class on the overlay. And so now that we've talked about these methods, we're going to go ahead and talk about their implementation. And just so you can see, we inject the overlay container in the constructor of the component. And then we go down here and we define the remove theme classes method and the add theme classes method. So the first thing we do within the remove theme classes is we take our overlay container and we get the container element and we get the class list, and we assign this class list to the overlay container classes. And so once we have those, we can go ahead and get the array from the overlay container classes, and we'll filter out the current themes from that array. And if that results in anything, if it has length, then we go ahead and remove those themes from the overlay container. The add theme class method gets the theme class from the object store. So we go ahead and take a snapshot of the key this.s.os.s.theme, which is our theme key, and that gives us our current theme class. And then once we have the theme class, we can go ahead and add it back onto the container element of the overlay container. The last thing we need to do is implement our app component HTML. So we'll take a look here. What we wanted for this is we wanted to be able to demo the color theming. And so we picked some buttons, and we have the colors primary, accent, and worn on these buttons. And we also wanted something with the CDK overlay container in it. And so we used the mat select that we use for theme switching to demo that the overlay container is being themed correctly. And you'll notice up here that we take our state service theme observable, and we monitor that in order to change the theme. And so we're just setting the class on the body to the current theme using that observable here. That's it for the implementation. Now, if we go ahead and serve this up, and you can do this too by cloning down to the repository and just running the same command here. We'll do ng-serve -o and run that, and let it build. And voila, here's the theme. That's the dark theme, and we'll go ahead and switch to light. That's the light theme. Switch it back to dark. That's the dark theme. And you'll notice that this is the overlay container here. And when we switch to light, the theme on the container itself switches to light. And when we switch it back to dark, it now has the dark theme. And so that's that. I really hope you enjoyed this mini guide on Angular theming, and we will see you in the next one.